So talk us through the UN's plan to have the world population, or 70% of the world population vaccinated by this time next year. Not an easy task, a very ambitious one, I might add, with the likes of Amnesty International arguing that these big pharmaceutical companies may prevent that because they are fueling a human rights crisis, focusing more on profits than rather driving the vaccinations throughout the world.
Absolutely. The message from the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres when he kicked off the high-level debates here at the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, he said that not enough is being done when it comes to the vaccine rollout. He said when it came to the science of creating the vaccines in the first place, the world got a passing grade, but he said the world gets an F for ethics when it comes to the rollout. So the message from the Secretary-General is far more needs to be done from these nations that are powering the vaccine rollout. Already we've seen COVAX cut back its promise of how many vaccines it could distribute throughout the world from 2 billion this year to 1.4 billion. We've seen the WHO also saying it's only received a fraction of vaccines that were promised. However, we've heard from some major vaccine-producing nations saying that they are ramping up production and ramping up delivery to those low and middle-income nations. Of course, you mentioned US President Joe Biden. He's pledged an extra 500 million Pfizer shots by this time next year. He says that'll mean 1.1 billion doses going to low and middle-income nations through 2022. And that is been really the message from President Biden, is that he says that what this means is that for every one shot given to an American, 3 shots will be going overseas. Now, we've also heard from China's President Xi Jinping. He says that 2 billion shots will be distributed globally by the end of this year, $100 million being distributed to COVAX. But there's certainly plenty of frustration. We've heard from a number of leaders from those low and middle income nations addressing the United Nations General Assembly over the past 2 days that says that it's just been far too slow and people are dying in the process.
That's very true. It has been indicated by Amnesty International as well that this process has taken far too long. And it's also been argued, William, that while it's a big donation that's been made by the US, there are more doses that are needed. And of course, a big challenge in this regard will be the timing and the delivery of these doses.
That's absolutely right. The fact that the president has announced this 500 million doses, that's certainly very good news for the international community, but it also means that that 500 million doses will be completed when it comes to that batch to be sent overseas by this time next year. That is an awful long time to go in the pandemic, and as you rightly mentioned, the longer it takes to get to that 70% of the world population to be fully inoculated, that brings with it raises the perspective and the potential for more harmful variants to circulate and for the vaccines that are out to become less effective. So that is a monumental concern going forward. And of course, this all comes as the US is debating the notion of introducing booster shots for its population. This incredibly controversial, considering that 90% of those on the African continent have yet to receive even a single vaccine shot.
On to another story now, William. So we saw some chaotic scenes breaking out at Haiti's main airport after migrants who had been deported from the United States were flown back home. I mean, what were some of the reasons given for the deportation, and really what's the latest in this regard?
The message from the Biden administration, is that what they're doing for those that are being sent back to Haiti are being provided with resources that they need when it comes to humanitarian resources. Of course, they're not only coming to a nation that's just seen a devastating earthquake, but of course so much political instability as well. This has been a record-breaking year when it comes to those trying to cross the southern border into the United States. There have been footage circulated of even some border control agents chasing down migrants on that border as well. Vice President Kamala Harris has addressed this, as has the Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and they've expressed concern. Their message has been urging people not to come to the United States as they pursue broader efforts to try and stem this flow of migrants and to try and get the migration crisis, as many are calling it, in check. We've also heard this week from Texas Governor Greg Abbott calling for more resources on the southern border, and there is plenty of backlash targeted towards the Biden administration. Many critics are saying that he's been too weak on the border, which has encouraged migrants to try and make that perilous journey into the United States. Of course, the message from the Biden administration is they firmly reject that, saying they're trying to put in place more long-term solutions to stem root causes of this mass migration we've seen. But of course, the issue with such a plan is that that takes time to implement.